Welcome back to the third session in Human Resources Management, the course on Human Resources Management being offered through IIT Kharagpur. My name is Aradhana Malik. I am an assistant professor in the in Vinod Gupta School of Management at IIT Kharagpur. So, I am going to be helping you through this course. We are now in on session 3. We have till now talked about various things related to human resources. We have discussed what human resources is, what the field is. We have also talked about job analysis. We have talked about what job means. We have talked about what human resources managers do. We've also discussed in the last session how to analyze jobs. So, a little bit of revision here. Some sources that I will be using today are this book called Business Communication Design by Pamela Angel, and you'll wonder why I'm using a book by on business communication. You'll see as we go along why this is necessary. So, I've tried to bring together the best possible collection of inputs from various experts from all over the world. Then there is a book by Briscoe on international human resources management. There's another book by Cascio that we use in our classes. Then there is another book by Gomez, Mejia, Balkin and Cardi, and there is a book by Pandey and Bashak that gives us inputs about the human resources in Indian context. So, these books have been used for the class that I will be teaching you today. A little bit of revision about the basic concepts. We talked about business processes, we talked about business process re-engineering, we talked a little bit about job design, we talked about job analysis. We did not get a chance to talk about job description, and I will do that today. Job specification is part of job description. Workflow, we did refer to workflow last time, and workflow analysis, which is an examination of how work creates or adds value to the ongoing business processes. So, we were talking about job analysis last time. One thing that I missed telling you was how do you conduct job analysis? How do you carry out job analysis? In order to conduct job analysis, the first thing we need to do is determine the desired applications of the job analysis. What is it that we are aiming to do? What is it that we want done? Okay. Job analysis refers to the different parts, the different steps of any job or any task that we want accomplished. So, we need to first identify the task that we want accomplished. Then we need to find out which of those steps needs analysis. All the steps may not need analysis, but some of the steps may be more complex than others that may need to be analyzed, that may need to be probed in further to find out how we can use the different aspects, the different attributes of jobs to evaluate our employees. Okay. And then gather the job information, find out as much as we can about the jobs that we are analyzing, verify the accuracy of job information. I told you about some of the techniques we use to analyze jobs: interviewing workers, observing things, doing things ourselves. So, we also need to verify the accuracy of job descriptions. For example, people who do not routinely work after office hours may find it very engaging, may find it very interesting, may find it very soothing to work till late hours in the night, or may find it very helpful to come early in the morning and start their day early, but they may not want to do it on a regular basis. So, we cannot really consider that information in toto. We cannot really take that information at face value. Yes, some people might enjoy coming to work early, but there might be others who might need to devote those morning hours to taking care of their families. Maybe there are children who need to be dropped to school. Maybe there are parents who need to be fed in the morning, aging parents living at home. So, their needs also need to be taken into account. Maybe there is somebody who's very focused on his or her own health, and that is extremely important. We put ourselves last in a collectivistic society, in a community oriented society like India. We are taught to put our needs last. Why? I don't understand. So there may be some of us who really consider taking care of our own health as very important, and for those of us coming to work early, maybe taking the time away from our routines of from our fitness routines, from the time that we need to spend on ourselves, and that may not be acceptable to a lot of people. There are some people who cannot do their work properly till they sit and meditate in the morning for 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. Okay, so that all that needs to be considered. I'm not saying that this is the only thing, but then seeing things from the perspective of the person who's actually doing the job is as important as doing the job yourself for a little bit of time and finding out how it's done and getting the opinions of others who are observing the job. I'll give you an example of this. Again, I'm a big fan of the Indian Armed Forces, and I know for a fact, and of course some members of my family are still serving in the armed forces, and I know for a fact that in the Indian Armed Forces the training begins, the training of officers begins with them being put in the roles of the very people they are going to supervise in time to come. So they start out as soldier trainees. Okay, in their training period they train as soldiers, they live in their barracks, they a senior soldier is appointed to help them, to train them on polishing their shoes, wearing the uniform right, putting different parts of their uniform together, ironing clothes. I mean, they stand along with their soldiers in the fields late at night. They go for night duty, they do everything that the frontline soldiers do for a specified period of time. Then they move on to the next rank and the next rank and the next rank, and then finally they graduate as officers of the Indian Army. I know this, my father served in the army and he's given me this information, so I know that it is authentic and it is the way it is done. At least it is the way it used to be done many years ago, but I'm sure the same thing is done. And the reason for that is that they really need to put themselves in the shoes of the people they are going to supervise, in the shoes of the people who they are going to order and die, who are going to die at their orders, I'm sorry. So they need to put themselves in the shoes of these people. Okay, so it is important to see a job from different perspectives, as an officer, as a soldier, as a supervisor, as a person just observing things, and then form a complete understanding of how things are done and what is required when we are doing what these people are doing, when we are in the same position as the persons we are going to supervise are. Then we realize the nitty-gritties of their needs, and then we really find out what we can do to make their lives comfortable and to enhance their commitment towards their jobs. Okay, so some guidelines: verify the accuracy of job information, document the job analysis by writing a job description. What is a job description? Job description is a summary statement of the information collected in the job analysis process. So make sure the elements of a job description, when we write a job description, we need to be careful of a few things. We need to make sure the job titles do not refer to a specific gender. Very, very important in this day and age. Being a woman, I know that anything that either elevates the status of women beyond a certain limit or brings it down is not acceptable. Okay, if I'm an employee, I'm an employee. I don't want to be referred to as a female employee of an organization. No, I'm doing the same thing that my male counterparts are doing, and I'm doing it better, I know. Make sure job descriptions are updated regularly so that the date on the job description is current. Avoid inflating a job title to give the job a more impressive sounding status than it deserves. again, this is being done these days, but it doesn't seem very ethical. Okay, so a salesman became a salesperson, which is okay, it's gender neutral, but then salesperson became a sales executive, sales manager. I mean, so, and again, I'm sure there are other descriptions to these titles, but then it results in unnecessary title inflation just to make people feel good. We should at least, I think it is very important to present things just as they are. Ensure that the supervisor of the job incumbent verifies the job description. The immediate supervisor of the position that is being advertised should verify, should approve the job description and the job posting. Job summary is a short statement that summarizes the job's duties, responsibilities and place in the organizational structure. It is very important for us to tell people where they will be in the structure of the organization, and it should be mentioned in the job description. Job duties and responsibilities explain what is done on the job, how it's done, why it is done. Job specification section lists the worker characteristics, knowledge, skills and abilities needed to perform a job successfully. And minimum qualifications are the basic standards a job applicant must have achieved to be considered for the job. Again, when we talk about minimum qualifications, we should not ask people, or we should not keep a degree as the minimum qualifying feature unless that degree is going to be used. Then you'll say, how do we screen people? They'll say, I know so and so software, but they don't, and we don't have time. Maybe for initial screening we need to specify, okay, you need to be a graduate or whatever. But then in skill based jobs especially, if a person is able to demonstrate her or his skill in a particular field, then that should be given more weightage than just the possession of a degree. Work experience qualifications should be carefully specified so that they do not discriminate against a specific gender, minorities or persons with disabilities, etc. I will cover this more when we talk about interviewing. Okay, flexibility in work environments. We have core workers, we have contingent workers. Okay, core workers are people who are full-time. Contingent workers are people who are hired as per need and convenience, and they are usually not paid as well as core workers. So different types of contingent workers are temporary workers, there are part-time workers. We could have outsourced or subcontracted workers. Employees transfer routine or peripheral work to another organization that specializes in that work, so we outsource it. Back office operations of very large multinational companies in the West have been outsourced to companies where cheaper labor is available. Qualified but less expensive labor is available, and that is outsourcing. So you just take it out of either your domain. Outsourcing could be local or offshoring. Local means within the same country. Offshoring means you take the entire operations, you take one entire unit of your organization and have somebody in another country do that work for you. Okay, we all see this in our daily lives. Contract workers are another form of the contingent workers. We hire people on contract for a specified period of time or till the end of the job or till the job is complete, and we say, this is what you need to do, this is the amount of time, this is the amount of money I'll give you. No benefits, no frills, lump sum is decided. Okay, so various ways in which we hire contingent workers. Some flexible work schedules are, we have either flexible work hours, we have compressed work weeks, flexi hours, divided core schedules. So we say, okay, you can do your work as and when you can, and we will not put a timeline. Or compressed work weeks are that you have to work. Compressed work weeks is actually a modification of flexi work hours, where you're supposed to work for about 40 hours in a week, and if you can manage to complete those 40 hours in 3.5 days, you get the other 3.5 days off. You do 12 hours each on the first 3 days, so that makes it 36 hours. The third day you do 4 hours in the morning and you're done, and then you have half a week off to do something else. Okay. Telecommuting, again, the working location is not specified, it is flexible. You can do your work from home. That is telecommuting. How do you forecast workforce demand? Some factors that affect the forecasting of workforce demand. We need to project, we need to find out how many people will be working for us. So, some things that affect this forecasting are changes in technology. We again, how many people might be asking for telecommuting. We have consumer attitudes and patterns of buying behavior, how people will buy things. We may not need to open so many stores. Why? Because especially for books, we don't need so many, the stores, old stores even in the West like Barnes and Noble, Tattered Cover, they're all closing down because people have started buying a lot of books online. They're cheaper, they're easily available, they reach their doorstep, so they don't actually spend a lot of money. It does take away the pleasure of going to a bookstore, browsing through books and touching, physically feeling the book and enjoying that feel. But then if you really need a book, you don't need to visit a bookstore anymore. Textbooks are available online. So all those stores are shutting down and the number of people that are required to manage such stores is going down. So technology is changing how people buy things. Local, national and international economies, again, how the economic environment is functioning also determines how many people are hired, how many people are fired, at what salaries, etc. Number, size and types of contracts won or lost by an organization, where the organization is currently in its growth phase, government regulations. So with with a lot of foreign investors coming into India, we've been able to hire a lot of people for regular jobs from within the country and offer a lot of jobs to people from outside the country also. And that changes the entire structure of an organization. The hiring process. So we've already forecasted workforce demand, we've already found out how many people we need. Now we need to start hiring them. Two aspects of hiring are recruitment and selection. Recruitment refers to the process of generating a pool of candidates. We identify who can do the job that we want done. Selection is, again, recruitment is the first filtering of candidates, identifying who can do the job well, and then selection is when we decide, okay, from this pool of candidates we will offer the job to these 2 and not offer the job to these 50. That is called selection. Everybody is equally qualified, everybody will fit in, but these 2 are the best and these 2 are not going to be able to survive in the organization after the detailed process is over. That is called selection. Very important. Recruitment involves specifying human resource requirements, numbers, how many people do we need, what mix of skills do we need, levels, at which level in the hierarchy do we need, for how long do we need these people. Then we have initial screening. There is rapid, rough selection, where we say, okay, people who do not have say more than 60% marks in their preceding degree are not eligible for selection in this institute or as faculty in this institute or whatever. I mean, we have, that is one of the requirements for selection as faculty, so I'm using that as an example. So that sort of weeds out a lot of people. Or we do not take in people as assistant professors here till they have a PhD degree. So anyone with a qualification less than a PhD cannot be taken in as a faculty member at IIT Kharagpur under normal circumstances, of course. Again, so that is the rule here. So that weeds out a lot of people who would otherwise probably be good teachers, but then among the good we have to select the best. Then we have a selection process. So initial screening, you weed out people, then once we recruit, we generate a pool of candidates, we say, okay, now we will interview them. So we interview people, we subject each one to physical tests. Sometimes, like in the armed forces, they go through a series of tests, physical and mental, where their strength is tested, where their ability to adjust is tested. All of those things are done. Then once the people are selected, once we give them their appointment letters, then we put them through a process of orientation. Orientation, especially in the case of junior management, where we tell them, we put them through a training program, initially induction programs, etc. For senior people, the orientation is more of mingling with other colleagues, so they find their niche. Then comes the placement. Once you are taken in, you get your office, you get your computer, you sit down, then you are told that this is going to be the scope of your work. This is what you can do, this is what you cannot do, this is what somebody else will be doing, so and so will depend on your work. So your work will depend on the work of so and so, and then you complete this work and give it to so and so. That is placement. Okay. In the case of senior management, orientation occurs after placement. In junior management, the orientation occurs as soon as you join the organization. Another word for orientation is also called, it's also called induction. Then once you start working in an organization, then the performance appraisal starts, and many organizations have a weaning period or a probationary period, as they call it, and after that probationary period is over, you are either hired or confirmed, or your contract is terminated. Developing recruitment policies. There are some labor market issues. Okay, so how do you know who is in the market? How many people do we have? What these people can do? Some factors affecting or defining limits of a labor market. Labor market means the catchment area where people who can do our work are. That whole pool of people who can do the work is called labor market. Some factors that affect labor market are geography, education, technical background, the industry we are in, the industry they are in, licensing or certification requirements, and union memberships. Okay, so that affects which union they are a part of. Sometimes it becomes absolutely essential to consider representatives of different unions. There may be a stipulation by the government or by the local authorities that we have to hire a certain number of people belonging to a particular union. So then we select the most qualified candidates. We talked about internal and external labor markets. I'll just let you know what these are. Internal labor market is that the pool of candidates that are qualified to do the job that we need done is available within the organization. That is called the internal labor market. External labor market is when we cannot find people to do the job that we need done from within the organization. So we open our doors to people from outside, or to increase diversity, to bring in fresh blood, we open our doors to people from outside. Sources: current employees, training, referrals from current employees, I know so and so who can do this job well. Former employees, somebody is working for you, goes away, comes back. Excuse me. Former armed forces personnel. In the Indian armed forces especially, I don't know about armed forces of other countries, but within India I know that the retirement age varies with the position one is in, and with one's and it may also be affected by the health status of a person, because you are required to be physically fit. Now, if a person retires at the age of 50 or 52, I think colonels, I'm not sure, but I think colonels in the Indian Army retire at the age of 50 or 52. 50 or 52, these days, because longevity is so high, a person who retires at the age of 50 or 52 is physically fit, may not be fit for the army, but then where a lot of running around is concerned, but as consultants they are very fit, and because they've served in the armed forces, they are physically very alert, very fit, trained, very disciplined. So they still have enough energy and motivation in them to continue to work for the next 20 or 25 years. And suddenly the government says, okay, thank you very much, here is your pension, you go. And what do? So they are looking for jobs, and they are quite capable, they have excellent analytical skills, so they need to be absorbed back into the community that they have served. And so it's a matter of pride for any organization to hire somebody from the armed forces, and in some organizations there is a stipulation that a certain percentage of the employees need to be from the armed forces. So that is one more channel. Customers can also be source of recruiting. Word of mouth travels, so you just tell people that okay, if you have somebody who can work in our organization, please let us know. Then of course the traditional method of print and radio advertisements, advertising through the internet, employment agencies, people who charge a fee for finding you the right person, and also charge a fee from the applicant for getting them a job, so that is what they survive on. Temporary workers, college or campus recruiting as we call it. And we have non-traditional recruiting. I really want to show you this. There's a cafe, and now this is some organizations are taking an extra effort to or making an extra effort to recruit people who may be marginalized in society. One is of course, in some jails I know the prisoners do some handwork, they make furniture, they make sofas and other kinds of things, and that or handicrafts, and these things are sold in the market. The other thing is organizations like this cafe in a place called Agra in India. I have to show you this to highlight the importance of organizations like these. There is a cafe in Agra called Sheroes, Women Heroes, and this cafe hires women who are victims of acid attacks. The people working in this cafe they only take in women who have been victims of acid attacks. What a wonderful way of integrating people back into the society. What a wonderful way. This is so commendable, and I'm sure as you students can also find such instances in your own environments. If you do, please send me an email. It will be wonderful to know what communities are doing to support people who have been treated badly in their communities, to help these people rebuild their confidence and come back into the environment, into the community with a bang, just like this cafe has done. Okay, this is an article. I couldn't find a website for this cafe. It's called Sheroes. So if anyone has some links, I would be very happy to receive an email from you with that link or similar instances. Okay, this is non-traditional recruiting. All right, evaluation hiring. Again, hiring workers for a trial period of 90 days and then deciding whether they should be retained or not. But then you'll say probationary period is also evaluation hiring. Maybe, but there are ethical issues. Is the uncertainty about job permanence fair? Maybe, maybe not. Should the trial period be longer or shorter? In most organizations, we have a probationary period. You bring in an employee, you try them, and then you decide whether you want to keep them or not. Should the trial period be longer or shorter? Maybe a year, maybe a month. How would you feel if you did not know whether you would have a job after 3 months? Maybe 3 months is too short. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years. I don't know, but that is definitely a cause for concern. And there is a comparison with temporary hiring. Temporary hiring is contract hiring. Here, when we talk about evaluation hiring, we are telling people that look, we will not, we may tell you the parameters we'll use, but we will not tell you for sure whether you can be a part of this organization permanently or not till the end of 3 months, and you're in a limbo. So despite the best of your efforts, you may be asked to leave. Okay, so that is, again, there are benefits because the organization gets to see the person in true form, because the organization gets to see how the person performs their job, and then there is also this concern about whether it is fair or not. Workforce utilization is a way of identifying whether or not the composition of the workforce measured by race and sex employed in a particular job category in a particular firm is representative of the composition of the entire labor market available to perform the job. This may sound very complicated. Workforce utilization is when we say, okay, these are the people from different categories of the community, different strata of society. Are they actually representing that stratum or not? Do we have enough representation from each strata of society? That is why we have affirmative action in the West. We have equal opportunity, so we try and give equal opportunity to, especially to the marginalized sectors. Now there is a debate going on as to how long this should continue, and I think it might be worthwhile to have a discussion again or to further this debate, unless it has been solved by the time this lecture is aired, which seems unlikely. Okay, so it might be worthwhile to discuss these issues in your class as to how long we should identify which group is represented and how. I personally do not have an opinion on this. Process of recruitment. We have a recruitment pipeline, the time between the receipt of a resume and the time a new hire starts work. How long does it take? In some organizations it's very long, in other organizations it's not so long. Okay, but faculty, again, depending on the need, it could be very long. Internal recruitment is much faster usually than external recruitment. Internal recruitment, again, we have job posting, employee referrals, and temporary worker pools. For example, the home guards in paramilitary or in the civil administration. External recruitment could be through university relations, through executive search firms, through employment agencies, through simple advertising. So various ways in which we recruit people. Diversity oriented recruitment, again we will have a special session on diversity, but then we emphasize sometimes in our advertisements that we would like, say for example, women employees would be encouraged, or women from rural areas would be encouraged to join the workforce, or preference will be given to people who have served in the armed forces, etc. So that is diversity recruitment. Or preference will be given to a community that is not yet represented in an organization. Okay, so we are essentially trying to encourage people from other areas, maybe geographical areas, maybe communities, maybe experience, etc. Sorry. How do we manage the recruitment operations? We use technology. We evaluate and control our recruitment operations. We find out how much money we are spending on recruitment. We find out how much money we are spending on hiring them, how much their contribution is going to be, how much salary we are going to pay them. Then we have realistic job previews. Okay, so various ways in which we manage recruitment operations. The other side of recruitment or job search is we have two scenarios. Either we hire people who are not employed or who haven't been employed for a while, or we are taking in employees who are employed but searching for a new job. Which of these is better? What kinds of challenges will each group bring? We don't know. But then that is something that human resources personnel have to consider when floating job applications when advertising for positions. You can't openly say that if you don't have a job with another company, please don't apply here also. No, it is unfair. Where does a person who doesn't have a job go? You can't also openly say that if you already have a job, please don't apply. So, it goes on a case by case basis, but the needs of both categories of employees are going to be very different. Some challenges in the hiring process are, one is turnover costs. Okay, turnover costs are how much it costs to hire new employees. So these costs include, of course, we start with separation, because when you want to hire somebody, somebody is leaving. So how much money is the organization? Either somebody is being fired or retiring or leaving, but that adds to the turnover costs. Okay, so paperwork processing, asking them to leave, golden handshake, all of that. Then recruitment, advertising costs money. Sometimes we have to pay fees to the recruiters. Selection process is very expensive, because in many organizations you would pay the applicants, especially at senior positions, the travel, the fare, then you cover the cost of their stay, you take time out of your jobs, regular jobs, to interview them, so that costs the company, you feed them, so it takes time away. And then comes the hiring, orientation, training. You give them, you interview say maybe 50 candidates and select only 2. So the cost of hiring, of recruitment per candidate goes up in such cases. And then we have hiring, which is orientation and training. So you take in a candidate, then you put them through an orientation program. You may invite external agencies to help them with orientation, to break the ice. Then we have training. You put them through different certifications, different layers of training, and that costs money. Then productivity. When people leave, the time a position remains vacant between the time that people leave and new people are hired also costs the organization, in terms of either having to pay extra to other people who are covering up for this person because they may be doing extra work, or some amount of work is missed, and that is a big cost for the company. And all of these are challenges for the human resources personnel who are involved in hiring. So as human resources experts or personnel or managers, it is our responsibility to minimize the cost incurred by the company. Okay. The other thing, the other big challenge is, we want to get the best candidates, and we also don't want to spend too much money on getting the best pool of candidates. The other aspect is determining characteristics important to performance. Okay, determining characteristics important to performance means everybody is bringing in a different pool of skills, attitudes, abilities, aptitudes, everything. The way people work is different. There is no cookie cut method of doing something exactly the same way, especially as you go higher up in the organization. People want freedom of thought. They have information at their fingertips. How do you figure out who will be motivated with what? What is going to be the motivating factor? What is going to be responsible for the performance of a person? How will you figure all those things out? So that becomes a challenge. Then another is measuring characteristics that determine performance. You've identified characteristics, now how do you measure them? You can't say 1 kilo of smile and 500 grams of motivation and 2 kilos of positive attitude. No, you can't do it like that. What are the performance indicators? We say we have key performance indicators. Can we have the same KPIs for everybody? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Okay, if you're only measuring things in terms of output, then I think it is unfair to the person who's doing the job. Okay, motivation factor. How do you keep employees motivated? Okay, some of us make a lot of mistakes. We may end up producing a better quality product than our counterparts, but some of us make a lot of mistakes. I am one of those who makes lots and lots and lots of mistakes, and then finally learns, and then my whatever I do is perfect, or as close to perfect as I would like it to be. So, but then some organizations don't allow for those mistakes. Okay, so that is one concern here. And who makes the decision? Who makes the decision about hiring? Who decides? Is it the immediate supervisor? Maybe the immediate supervisor who's going to be directly affected by an employee's work should be making this decision. Maybe the person who's ultimately going to be affected by the work of all the 100 or 500 or 1000 or 5000 employees is going to make the decision. So at what level should who should make the decision at what level is another challenge for the human resources personnel. Staffing. Recruitment is done. Now comes staffing. Some organizational considerations in staffing decisions, which means you take people in, you've selected people, now you are going to orient them and place them. So this is from the book by Cascio. Business strategy essentially is affected by the developmental stage of the organization, and the management selection strategy is essentially affected by the developmental stage of the organization. So this is all business strategy. Now different levels at which an organization could be would require different types of employees. For example, in the embryonic stage, initial stages of starting an organization, we would need people with an entrepreneurial attitude. We would need people who are go-getters, who are very high energy, quick decision makers, quick thinkers, who like to minimize costs, who can think creatively, who can generate new ideas and take those ideas to fruition. That's an entrepreneurial spirit. High growth. The second stage of the organization is high growth. You've settled, you've stabilized as a new organization. Now you're looking for very steep growth. At that point, we need entrepreneurs for growth, but growth directors to build stable management systems. We not only need people who are very high energy, we also need people who can provide stability to the organization. We also need people who can give a direction to the energy that the entrepreneurs bring in, so that the organization does not slip back. We need people to help chart a course. So we need such people. When the organization has reached the level it wants to reach, when the organization has stabilized, it is maturing, it doesn't really require that speed of growth initially that it required initially. At that time, we need bureaucrats who are comfortable with repetition. So the organization has discovered its formula for success, and all it wants to do is keep repeating that formula. At that stage, we need people who are not that creative, who will not mind repetition, who will not want to experiment, who will want to maintain things, who will lay down the rules and policies, and who will ensure that these rules and policies are stable. Okay, and then the last stage of an organization is the aging stage, where whatever the organization is doing is maybe no longer required by the market. For example, typewriters, photostat machines, they came and went. People of my generation have seen the surge of photocopy machines and the near death of photocopy machines. In today's day and age, scanner cum printer is the in thing. A regular photocopy machine does not have so much of value the way it used to. We need photocopy machines that can store data. Okay, so it is there, but it is on the decline. Radios, we still listen to radio in our cars, especially those of us who have long commutes. We listen to radio, but it is not that popular as it used to be. We saw the surge of video cassettes, VCRs. Nobody uses VCRs anymore. We've all seen audio cassettes. or at least people of my generation have seen audio cassettes, and we used to use a pencil to roll it up, and it used to get wrapped around. So that tape was there. Those things have, I mean, I don't think anyone manufactures those anymore. They came and went. Okay, video cassettes, I still see some video cassettes in the market, but for the most part people have transitioned to CDs. So these are aging industries. Electronics industry is one that has aged really, really fast. Okay, it has a very short lifespan. The products that are developed have a very short lifespan. Creativity, of course, helps the organization grow. At that point, again, we need entrepreneurs who can be very creative. We need bureaucrats, but we need a lot more entrepreneurs who can restart the organization, help it become more creative, help it diversify, help it stay in the market. Okay, so we need different categories of employees at different stages of an organization's life. Some organizational considerations in staffing decisions. One, of course, is strategy. The other is the culture of the organization. We will deliberate more on this when we talk about diversity. Culture is transmitted through formal statements of philosophy, promotion criteria, what people talk about, what people pay attention to, etc. The implications of this are that, how do you feel? What is the environment in the organization? Okay, implications are, it's an important consideration for prospective employees. So culture is what people do on a day-to-day basis, how they feel about each other, what is their loyalty level, what is their commitment, etc. And it can, if people are comfortable with the culture, if it is coherent, if it is consistent with the values, beliefs and attitudes of employees, what they like to do is what the organization wants them to do in terms of dealing with people, dealing with situations, dealing with conflict, in terms of taking care of their interests, then they are likely to be productive, they are likely to not get tired so soon, and they are likely to be much more satisfied with the employees, and they are likely to stay with the organization a lot longer. Another consideration is the logic of personnel selection. Do we really need people? Okay, so the logic behind personnel selection, why are we hiring more people, why are we selecting people, those parameters need to be clearly spelled out. Reliability and validity of measurement while predicting a relative level of job performance. We may think that we need a person to do X, Y, Z. We need a person to perform up to a certain level, but is it really possible for that employee to do that? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so we need to be realistic, and how many times our requirements can be repeated, and how valid they are, how good a fit they are in that situation, is what we need to think about when we staff people, when we place people in different categories. How do we screen and select people? We do that through application forms. Now, some words of caution here. The application forms should not contain questions that might lead to an adverse impact on the employment of members of groups protected under civil rights law. We have to be very careful while following rules. We cannot ask questions that cannot be demonstrated to be job related or that do not concern a bona fide occupational qualification. We cannot ask questions that could possibly constitute an invasion of privacy. Why do we need to know the marital status of an employee if we are not going to give them health benefits for their family? What difference does it make? If you're not offering health benefits for an employee's spouse, then there is no point in asking for the marital status of an employee. Okay, or there is no point in asking questions about the employee's health records, for example. These are private issues. If we are not planning to give them special leave for religious holidays, we should not be asking questions about the employee's religion unless we are trying to ensure equal opportunity for underrepresentative communities. We should not be asking questions about a person's caste in India, especially in India. Okay, unless there is a provision in our company policy to provide equal opportunity for people from different communities, ethnic groups, we should not be asking them this question. Why do we need to know which caste a person belongs to? Why? Not required. Okay, so we have to be very careful. Recommendations and reference checks provide information about education and employment history, character and interpersonal competence, okay, whether they are comfortable to work around, ability to perform the job, again, whether they'll do the job well or not, willingness of the past or current employer to rehire the application. Recommendations from the employer will give people an idea whether the current employer actually wants them, is willing to let them go or not. If they've been fired, then again that should not be used as a criterion for not hiring them, but it could inform you about the interpersonal fit of the incumbent employee with the organization, and they are meaningful only if the referee, only if the person writing the recommendation knows about the person you are going to hire. So, only if they have had direct interaction will this be important. Okay. And only if this person has a reputation for being completely honest. Candid means completely honest and clear, forthright. And if the person can express the information in a meaningful way. We also need to find out whether the information provided by the referee is going to be helpful for us in making our hiring decision. Okay. So, there are some guidelines for writing letters of recommendation. We should try and find out what the job requirements are, and we should write the letters of recommendation in such a way that they will help the employer understand whether the employee will be a good fit for the organization or not. And we should also indicate how long we have known the applicant and what qualifies us to say something about the applicant's ability to do a job properly. We should only seek information related to the job through these letters of reference. We should obtain the candidate's written permission to check references prior to doing so. We should stay away from subjective areas like the candidate's personality, for the simple reason that this person, again, it would be nice to have something positive, but if something negative is written, then that might influence our hiring decision, and that would be unfair to the candidate. We should evaluate the credibility of the source of the reference material or the referee. Wherever possible, we should use public records. Instead of asking specific people, we should just go by public records, and we should follow the law at all times. Recruitment, hiring, firing, we need to be crystal clear on the law applicable to us for these decisions, and we need to follow the law down to the last T. Very, very important. Okay. Screening and selection methods. We have tests and inventories, we have physical tests, we have drug testing, and we have various procedures for testing. We should inform all candidates in writing of the company's policies regarding fitness standards and drug use. And I have come to know that in India, especially in government organizations, when we go for our health checkups, we are women, all women going in for a health checkup are subjected to a pregnancy test, and their body fluids are tested for AIDS testing without their knowledge. In some organizations, not all, but in many organizations this is being done, and this is unfair. This is so wrong. Why do you want to know whether a woman is pregnant or not? You at least ask her whether you should be doing this or not. I know I'm saying this in a public forum, um, I personally, as a woman, I think it's an invasion into my privacy. I have nothing to hide, but then it is an invasion of my privacy if my body fluids are tested in a certain way without my knowledge. Okay, these tests just become a part of our record. We come to know later. I should be asked whether I want such a test to be run or not, because there are implications. I mean, for an unmarried Indian woman, it is embarrassing for her body fluids to be tested for a pregnancy test. You know, it is shameful. So I think that is you know, and people feel uncomfortable about it, but they don't say anything. So we should include the policy and possibility of testing in all employment contracts. We should present the program in a medical and safety context. We should check the testing laboratory's experience, its analytical methods, and the way it protects the security and identity of each sample. And the confidentiality of the results of all tests should be maintained. And we should ensure uniformity of testing for all employees. Various controversial selection techniques are handwriting analysis, polygraph examinations, lie detector tests, tests of integrity. Okay, these are some tests of integrity are the like shrinkage types of tests of integrity. There are overt and personality based tests. There are mental ability tests, validity generalization tests. For example, the ONET content model, you can go through it online. So various types of testing techniques are there. There are measures of personality, there are projective measures, there are measures of leadership ability, there is personal history data, there are employment interviews, and there is peer assessment. Okay, and we also have work sample tests. We have assessment centers that specialize in testing employees. Various types of tests going on. Each one has its own advantages and disadvantages. Now, the last part of today's presentation talks about the employment interview. Okay, an employment interview involves the interpersonal communication exchange between a potential employer and a job applicant. Here is where I referred to the book by Pamela Angel on business communication. When we go for an interview, it is important for us to know what we are interviewing for, and it is also important for us to know what the employer is looking for. Okay, so this is the process is depending on the number of people interviewing. We have a one-on-one interview and we have a panel interview. One-on-one is where one person interviews one person. Panel interviews where a number of people interview one person. Depending on the traits being tested, we have traditional interviews where simple question and answers are given, questions are asked and answers are expected. We have behavioral interviews where expression of skills is required for the job. Okay. Goals of an employment interview are to gather relevant information regarding a specific topic for subsequent evaluation and use for the purpose of assessing a match, whether the employee fits in with the company's goals or not, whether the person's personality, attitude, disposition, etc. fit in with the company or not, determining the applicant's motivation, communication skills, and dependability. We talk to the person and many times we are able to find out whether this person will be welcome, will be able to adjust to the company or not, and we can also clarify a lot of things that are specified on the resume. We are also able to test the orientation of the applicant to the job requirements and background of the organization. A lot of things cannot be mentioned on paper. So this interview helps us tie all the loose ends. What should one ask? Some open-ended questions could set the tone for the interview and help build a rapport. Some situational questions and some worker requirement questions. Okay, what should one not ask? Don't ask people if they have children or plan to have children, or what child care arrangements do they have. This is very wrong. It's an invasion into their privacy. Unless you're planning to fund the education of their children or give them health benefits, please don't ask this. Do not ask the age of the applicants, because it could be perceived as, some people may perceive it as our bias against people who are older. So we have all this information on the application form. We can use it if we need to. Don't ask for the applicant's height or weight. Again, it's very personal. Unless it is related to the actual performing of the job, please don't ask these questions. Don't ask a female candidate for her maiden name. Never ask a candidate about their marital status, or whether they plan to get married or not, whether women are pregnant or not. I mean, these questions are totally out of bounds. Please do not ask these questions. When are you planning to get married? Questions about spouses and all, that is not acceptable. So this ends our presentation for today. I'll come back with more inputs about how we treat employees. The next class will cover performance appraisals. We've taken in employees, we have tested them. In the next class, we'll talk about how we appraise their performance, how we orient them to the organization that they are a part of, and how we assess their performance and what we need to keep in mind for assessing their performance. The next two lectures will focus on this aspect. Thank you for listening. Wish you all the best.